بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى مهما يكن من شيء بعد الحمد والصلاة. My dear respected brothers, elders, teachers, honorable guests and sisters listening at home by the live transmission, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you allow me to start with a little preface, if you allow me to start with a little prologue, if you allow me to start with a little preamble, a sort of prelude, then I'll start by telling you that recent statistics reveal that 10% of the prison population in the UK are Muslims, 2/3 of whom are young men aged 18 to 30. If you allow me to do the mathematics for you, then I'll tell you that these stats insinuate the fact that the ratio of Muslim to non-Muslim prisoners in the UK is 1 to 9, whereas the ratio of Muslims to non-Muslims living in the UK is approximately 1 to 32. If you bear with me, I'll put things into perspective for you by telling you that relatively there are over 3 times as many Muslim prisoners than non-Muslim prisoners in the prisons of this country. If you allow me to move on to drugs, I'll tell you that the social affairs reporter of the BBC reports that the biggest heroin dealer in the country is Asian. The biggest heroin dealer in the country is Muslim. If you allow me to add to that, I'll quote Donald Toon, the man in charge of criminal investigation for customs and excise in the north of England. He mentioned that we certainly see a significant involvement of Muslims, of Asians, both serious and organized criminals in both the importation and then the onward supply of heroin in the UK market. The best estimate we have is that up to a quarter of heroin used in the UK has some sort of Muslim link, some sort of Muslim origin. If you allow me to continue, I'll tell you that the more despondent factor is that the prisoners we discussed earlier are youngsters. The prisoners we discussed earlier are youth dominant. 66% of Muslim prisoners in this country are youngsters. And if that doesn't portray, if that doesn't delineate, if that doesn't outline the ignominy, the disgraceful situation of our Muslim youngsters today, then allow me to move on to education, and I'll tell you that 31% of British Muslims leave school with no qualifications whatsoever. 31% of our youngsters leave school with less than 5 GCSEs, and that's in comparison with 15% of the national average. But you know, the confusing factor involved when one is made to conceive the decadent state that we find the contemporary Muslim using today is how. And that's the question, my brothers, how? How is it that the very religion, how is it that the very deen, how is it that the very Islam, which would once boast its youth, excelling all others in all departments of life, now finds its youth in the state and situation it's in? How is it that the very religion which would once boast the likes of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, regarding whom it's mentioned that whilst he was a youngster, in his youth he would pray one complete recitation of the Quran on a daily basis, and he would do this every single day. Yet today this same religion, this same Islam, this same deen finds its youngsters committing all those acts which are against and disinclined to the teaching of the Quran. It doesn't make sense. And that's why, my brothers, the question remains, how? How is it that the very religion, the very Islam, the very deen that would once boast its youngsters using their strength on the battlefield for the sake of Allah, like for example the Ali radiallahu ta'ala regarding whom it's mentioned that he participated in the battle of Badr at the age of 24. The age of 24, you know, that's our age. He participated in the battle of Badr at the age of 24, and according to some narrations, he killed 22 to 23 kuffar alone by himself on that one day single-handedly. Yet today this same religion, this same Islam, this same deen finds its youngsters using their strength in what? In fighting and quarreling with one another. And for what? You know, for something called street cred. Every single youngster wants to be known as the biggest, baddest hug on the street. This is our situation today. It doesn't make sense. The question, my brothers, remains here, how? How is it that the very religion which will once boast its youth, worshipping Allah day and night, like for example Urwa bin Zubair radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, regarding whom it's mentioned that while he was a youngster, he would pray 1/4 of the Quran from the Musaf during the day, and then he would repeat it at night during the tahajjud prayer, and he would do this every single day while he was a youngster. Yet today this same Islam, this same deen, this same religion finds its youngsters indulged in guna day and night. It doesn't make sense. And another question, my brothers, we may say how? How is it that the very religion which would once boast its youth, excelling all others in academics, in education, like for example Ibn Sina, the very Ibn Sina, regarding him, it's mentioned that whilst he was a youngster, in his youth, he became known as the greatest mathematician, physician, astronomer, optician of his time. Whilst he was a youngster, he wrote a book called The Canon of Medicine. You can go and ask any doctor today, this book that he wrote whilst he was a youngster, The Canon of Medicine, till today, this book is still regarded as the greatest single book in the history of medicine. Yet today, the same religion, the same Islam, the same deen that was yesterday boast the likes of Ibn Sina, today it finds its youngsters being banded illiterate by national statistics. You know, it doesn't make sense. Our situation today is despicable, it's shameful, it's humiliating, it's scandalous. You know, the sad truth is, there are a minority in this country. If the prisons of this country are filled with our people, the sad truth is, there are a minority in this country. If the biggest drug dealers in this country are our people, the sad truth is, there are a minority in this country. If the biggest forces in this country are our people, the sad truth is, there are a minority in this country, yet we're hated the most in this country. The sad truth is, there are a minority in this country, yet we look down on the most in this country. We look down on the most in this country. But you know, my brothers, the question remains is how and why? How have we reached this low? Why have we reached this low? And the answer, my brothers, is quite simple, because the answer lies in one line. And if you want to know what that one line is, all you have to do is ask me, because when you ask me, I'll ask you to open up Tariq ibn Kathir, where you find that one line. The one line is the one line of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when he mentioned addressing all Muslims of all times, of all places, of all nationalities, إِنَّكُمْ كُنْتُمْ أَذَلُّ النَّاسِ وَأَحْقَرُ النَّاسِ وَأَقَلُّ النَّاسِ فَأَعَزَّكُمُ اللَّهُ بِالْإِسْلَامِ فَمَمَّا تَطْلُبُ الْعِزَّ بِغَيْرِهِ يُذِلُّكُمُ اللَّهُ. He mentions to all Muslimano, listen to me, you are the lowest of people, you are disregarded the most, you are the lowest of people, people would look down on you, and then you embrace Islam, فَأَعَزَّكُمُ اللَّهُ بِالْإِسْلَامِ, and Allah Ta'ala elevated you through Islam. فَمَهْمَا تَطْلُبُ الْعِزَّ بِغَيْرِهِ يُذِلُّكُمُ اللَّهُ. Now whenever you look for respect, whenever your love lies in anything other than Islam, Allah Ta'ala will degrade you. And you know, you assess our situation today. Where does our respect lie? Where does our love lie? You know, we're the same people who can sit in front of the white screen for hours upon hours, yet when it comes to opening the Quran, we pray for 5 minutes and we're tired. Where does our respect lie? Where does our love lie? We're the same people who can play football for hours upon hours, yet when it comes to performing the salah, too tired. You know, where does our respect lie? Where does our love lie? The sad truth is that our respect, our love doesn't lie in Islam. Our respect, our love lies in this materialistic dunya. And that's why, you know, we're always dreaming about driving the fastest cars, aren't we? We're always dreaming about living in the fastest yards, aren't we? We're always dreaming about wearing the latest garments, aren't we? Because our love, our respect lies in this dunya. What did Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu say? He said, فَمَهْمَا تَطْلُبُ الْعِزَّ بِغَيْرِهِ يُذِلُّكُمُ اللَّهُ. That whenever your respect, as soon as your love, as soon as your respect lies in anything other than Islam, Allah Ta'ala will degrade you. Then do we wonder why we be degraded as a nation collectively? But you know, if you look back into history, if you open the books of history, you realize that there was a time where there were a group of people who would look for respect only and only in Islam, because they only had Allah and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on their minds. They only had Allah and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on their agenda, and that's why they could sacrifice their anything and everything for the sake of Allah. And as a consequence, Allah Ta'ala elevated them. Allah Ta'ala elevated them to such an extent that within a period of 100 years, they went from a group of people who were regarded as the lowest of the low to a group of people who were regarded as the highest of the high. Within 100 years, they went from a group of people who were being kicked around in the streets of Makkah to a group of people